Hello, everybody. Welcome to Anime Sickos. I'm Tom.
I'm Joe, and today we have a very special episode. This is something that we've talked about for a while. So to begin, there's a question that has perplexed scholars since 1989, and that question is Roadhouse anime? We at Anime Sickos have made a major breakthrough in our research, and we would like to read you our results and our findings in their entirety. Tom, would you be so kind?
I got it. Roadhouse is anime. Joe, I cannot say enough how fucking glad I am to finally have people to talk about Roadhouse on a podcast, and especially to talk about this theory that I've had that is completely correct.
It is correct.
It's anime.
You had proposed the episode idea to me pretty early on, and I had thought, that's a funny goof, but there's just nothing there, you know? And then you showed me the receipts. And then we rewatched it again, and I concede it is anime. Yeah. Not only is it anime, it could only be considered anime.
It's like really good anime too.
Yeah, it's a solid anime.
Like Roadhouse is legitimately like an OVA. It just is a nice, clean hour and a half of anime.
Right.
It's got all the tropes.
And like all anime from 1989. There's some weird translation issues, which we'll get into.
I mean, it's not perfect.
It's not perfect.
You get what you have to deal with what you get when it comes to anime.
So, just at the top here, we know Roadhouse. We love Roadhouse.
I love Roadhouse.
Can you, as succinctly as possible, let our listeners know the premise to Roadhouse and sort of what the movie is?
I'll give you the summary. Now, this is a Patrick Swayze vehicle. Our hero is Patrick Swayze, so you're in for it. It's going to be good. So the summary goes thusly. In a Missouri suburb full of damp maniacs, there lives a palatial bar, something like 5 stories tall. Notably not a roadhouse. Roadhouse to me indicates that it's like a truck stop. So basically, that it's not in a town, that travelers go to it. No, this is in a town. And it's only frequented by townies who live there. Anyway, there's this bar where every single person in it wants to murder an employee with a knife. The owner of this bar hires Dalton. This is Patrick Swayze. Dalton is the most famous man in the world, and he is hired to be the bouncer. Now, a strange man named Brad Wesley, who runs the suburb mob, does not want the bar to get cleaned up for unclear reasons. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Dalton then kind of fucks around for a while, and then Dalton and the small business owners in the community murder the bad guy. And that's Roadhouse.
That's the movie.
The whole thing for you. Now you may be wondering, Tom, how is this anime? This doesn't sound like anime to me. This is live action. This is Anime Sickos. You talk about anime gaming posting jobs. Well, this is not any of those. Bitch, it's anime. How fucking dare you? As I say, we got receipts. I got a whole list in front of me of reasons why Roadhouse is anime. Joe, shall I go through them?
Yeah, we'll go from the top. So, reason the first.
We have a protagonist with improbable hair.
Yes. So, Patrick Swayze's character, Dalton, it's not a mullet. It might have evolved from it has a common ancestor with a mullet, but it's something better.
It's like this weird feathery halo that just like, it doesn't rest on his head so much as like sort of float above it and like kiss the scalp.
Yeah, it's perfect.
It's Super Saiyan 3 hair, I think you said, while you were watching it.
Yeah, he has Super Saiyan 3 hair all the time. He doesn't have to transform at any point. He just is always in that mode.
Also, if you know about Patrick Swayze, you know that he also has the Super Saiyan 3 brow ridge.
Yeah, he has caveman head. He suffers from caveman head.
Yeah. So, in anime, you have to have an extremely over-designed main character who looks ridiculous, whose hair is crazy. Think of Yugi from Yu-Gi-Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
And we got that here. It's the same.
This movie is what if Yu-Gi-Oh was a hunk?
And what a hunk he is. Joe, this is for a different episode, but as you know, you have heard my wife and I talk to you about hunks. We have a very in-depth theory about hunks that we can get into another time. All you need to know is that Patrick Swayze is one, and is in prime form.
And he is in this case, he is a rare specimen, the anime hunk.
Yeah.
Usually they're like, I don't know, sort of thin, like androgynous. Not here.
Well,
no.
Yeah, Joe, here's the thing. You're thinking of like modern day anime. Keep in mind that the Roadhouse OVA was animated in 1989.
You're right.
This is when Fist of the North Star was big. We're talking big, beefy guys.
Yeah, that's true.
And so we have our protagonist. He has his improbable hair. It's anime so far. Now, let's move on even further. What's something that happens a lot in anime? Reason the second that this is in anime. In anime, you get a lot of worlds where everyone is super hyper fixated on an extremely mundane task.
Yes. So, for example, Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Is about a card game that I don't understand. However, I know enough about the show to fully accept that it's the most important thing in this world. Your economy runs on this card game.
Mm-hmm.
If you're bad at the card game, you go to super hell.
Yeah. Seto Kaiba is a teen millionaire who inherited a weapons company, and he decided to pivot from making weapons to making accessories for this card game, and he made more money.
Right. So if you were in this world and you're like, I want to be a surgeon, you fucked up because you should have picked a card game doer.
Yes, exactly. And then you also, you got a lot of sports animes where it's not as over the top as Yu-Gi-Oh, but like in Haikyuu, it's an anime about a bunch of kids at high school playing volleyball. And literally, we never see anyone in this series who is not thinking about playing high school volleyball constantly. So it really comes across as it's the most important thing in the world. Everyone cannot get enough of it.
And that's exactly what's happening with Roadhouse. But the activity that everyone knows about, the activity and notoriety that transcends state lines...
For real.
Is bouncing a rowdy bar.
Yes, because let's give you some actual specifics here. So the movie begins in New York State in another fucking enormous warehouse bar where every bar in this movie is has the capacity to hold something like 2,000 people. It's always completely full. There's always a blues band singing the worst music of all time. Imagine if Stevie Ray Vaughan sucked Mondo ass. That's the only music that plays in bars. And so this is where Dalton is starting the movie working. And some maniac from fucking Jasper, Missouri, who we'll talk about him more later, shows up to hire him out from under the bar owner here. And he has come to New York specifically to hire this one guy. When he comes to the Double Deuce, which is the titular roadhouse, when he tells people that he's Dalton, it's like you told someone that oh yeah, I'm fucking Brad Pitt, the famous actor. Everyone's like, oh, you're here?
Yeah. Everyone who ever works in a bar hears stories at bedtime about Dalton, the powerful bouncer who will kill your foes and make your bar run very clean.
To be clear, the best case scenario for Dalton is that a bunch of guys at your bar are being rowdy and you hire him and then your bar becomes normal. And he is known to literally every single character in this movie by name before they meet him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. His other skill, it's like a subspecialty that's not as important as his ability to bounce.
Yeah, he took some levels in this, but his main class is bouncer.
Yeah, his main class is bouncer. His subclass, however, is small business owner. He took Business 101 at a community college, even though he does have a PhD in philosophy.
Yeah.
He knows enough about, they hire him to bounce the rowdy bar, but what he does very quickly is just make it not suck.
Yeah. Because like the rowdy bar, especially in the beginning.
Can we talk about what we mean by a rowdy bar?
Yes,
Specifically paint a picture.
So it is described in the movie as the kind of place where they sweep up the eyeballs after closing.
What that means in practice is you have a bar where there's a band playing, and then if you're like a patron, if you're a patron of this bar, what happens is you finish your beer, and then you smash it on the table and start punching the guy next to you.
Yeah.
This is normal, and then your punching will, of course, make people nearby also just start hitting people.
Yeah, you hit someone, that person tumbles over and bumps into someone else. That person then has sicko mode activate, and they just punch someone else at fucking random.
Yeah.
To be clear, there is not like one single piece of glass in the Double Deuce originally that goes like 5 seconds without getting broken.
Right.
Like there are thousands of dollars of property damage every single night. And the bouncers currently, what they do when a fight breaks out is that they pick up a guy and throw them into another guy, which again just activates the sicko mode chain reaction.
It transmits the rage virus, which is a huge error on their part.
Yeah. But Dalton is known worldwide as not just being a bouncer, because this is one of the fucking things that is especially incredible about Roadhouse. And it's another, in anime, when there's a world hyper fixated on a certain activity, everyone knows the sort of like niches and nuances of it, because he's not actually a bouncer.
No, he's a level above. He's ascended. And he's what, Tom?
He's a cooler. What's a cooler? Unclear.
A cooler is a bouncer who can balance a checkbook. Pretty much. That's basically what a cooler is.
Like he is sort of like king bouncer. The way he describes his magic system, which is another reason that this is anime. In anime, the protagonist has to use a specific magic system with very specific rules. So he describes his magic system to the other bouncers, and it goes thusly: there are 3 systems in order to use Nen for cooling. 1, you never underestimate your opponent. Okay. Number 2, take it outside. It has never occurred to these guys to fight outside and not destroy the tables and chairs of the place they work.
When someone pulls a knife in their bar, which happens every 30 seconds.
Constantly.
Their first reaction is to keep them in there so they can stay stabbing people.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I mentioned that this bar is full of like 1,000 people every night. Whenever someone sees another patron pull out a knife and start swinging it wildly, their reaction is like, hell yeah.
Yes.
It fucking rules. Anyway, the third rule of the magic system is be nice, which again has never occurred to them.
There is a catch to be nice, though.
Be nice until it's time to not be nice.
And only one person knows when it's time not to be nice.
Yeah, it's Dalton. I mean,
it's the cooler.
Yeah. One of the bouncers like, how we gonna know? And you expect him to say like, you'll know, but he literally says, you won't. I'll tell you.
Yes.
It's the best. And like one of the bouncers is like, are you trying to tell me that if someone calls me a cocksucker, I'm not gonna stab him? And he's like, yeah. It just never occurred to him.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit more about how just insane the clientele of the bar is. Everyone is aggressive in an irrational, insane way.
Everyone's very damp as well.
Yeah, everyone is so wet. Everyone is just swampy. They have just matted, wet hair.
Yeah, and like this is 1989 rural Missouri. This is almost entirely white people, and all of them have jerry curls.
And they're wet jerry curls. Fresh out of the shower jerry curls. And as far as I can tell, the reason everyone is so aggressive is because everyone for sure has lead poisoning.
100%. At one point, Dalton asked for coffee later in the movie, and they ask leaded or unleaded, which we take to mean caffeinated or decaf. But I think it's literal.
No, it's absolutely real. Like, they're like, yeah, do you want the big lead water in your coffee? The kind that gives us incredible brain strength?
It's really good because like I don't understand why people go to the bar. For one thing, like it's a nightmare. It's not fun.
When he shows up at the Double Deuce for the first time, it is so bad that the band plays behind a chain link fence, and basically it's there because as the band plays, people will just throw bottles and bricks at the band because it's fun to them.
Yeah, and it's not because they don't like the band. At one point,
they love them. That's how they show. That's how they show appreciation. That's because they're in their lead-poisoned brains, giving and appreciating violence is the same as a handshake.
Yeah, language is becoming increasingly untenable to them. They're losing their grasp on it even more every day. So the only thing they can understand is violence. The only thing they can trust is their fists. And that's how they live their life. They go to this enormous bar. Double Deuce, to be clear, is a fucking warehouse. It is like 3 stories tall, but it's all one. It just has like 50-foot roofs.
It's a crime barn.
It's also, to be clear, you think of a bar, how much light is there in your average bar?
It's usually pretty dark.
Yeah, no, fucking fully lit at the Double Deuce.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And there's a bunch of shirtless guys who are shuffling wetly to this terrible blues.
Dalton knows the main singer, who's his blind kid.
Yeah.
I assume he knows him from his previous gig.
Yeah.
This is a famous blind white blues traveler guy.
This is an actual real musician. His name is Jeff Healey. He fucking sucks ass. If this movie's soundtrack is any indication, it's just the blandest shit in the world. Anyway, Joe, do we go on to the next reason Roadhouse is anime?
Yes.
Because, this is pretty compelling stuff, but we got a lot more.
Yeah.
Any anime worth its salt, it's going to have your protagonist, it's going to have your setting, but it's also got to have an ensemble cast of extremely over-designed side characters, none of whom pay off. And buddy, does Roadhouse have that?
Yes. You can look at this 2 ways. You could look at it as 1, bad writing.
Yeah.
2, power creep.
Fuck. Yes, it's anime. It's power creep.
It's an issue of power creep because these supporting characters just get outclassed by the main sane character, Patrick Swayze, and they just can't keep up anymore.
Let's go through some of the people who are at the bar. First of all, we have the bartender, who is played by John Doe, the bass player of classic LA punk band X. He, again, like all of these people, is extremely lumpy and damp. He has he has facial hair that is just astonishing to look upon. And
I would describe it as what if Genghis Khan did it wrong? It's just it's a mustache that floats below his nose, but also above his lip.
It's got air. It's got daylight coming through on both sides.
Yeah, yeah.
It's incredible. He gets fired for stealing, but turns out he's the nephew of the villain. So he comes back later with a bunch of goons demanding his job back, and Dalton is like, no, you can't have it back. And he decides this is, side characters don't really have a chance to show off their power set. Yeah. In anime, it's very rare, and generally they only get to do it once. So this is when he does it. He pulls out a fucking knife the size of 30 to 50 feral hogs. This is the biggest knife you've ever seen.
He basically has a katana.
It's incredible. Some other side characters. We got Carrie Ann.
She is a bartender who only exists, as far as I can tell. One, in the background, it's revealed that, she can sing. She's a good singer. But her main purpose is to drool over Patrick Swayze's just fine ass.
Yeah, so one thing that doesn't actually get put into a lot of movies in the West, which is why it's good that this is an anime that was made in Japan, you don't really get to see a lot of, honest female sexuality. The MPAA that rates movies has famously been criticized that anytime there is a depiction of a woman enjoying sex on screen, they judge the movie way more harshly than if it were a man. So as a result, you don't really get to see that a lot. So when you see Carrie Ann show up at Dalton's house uninvited in the morning for no reason.
Also, she's like, how'd you find it? And she's like, and that's it. That's fine.
She shows up, and he gets out of bed, and he's completely nude, and you see his whole ass. And Patrick Swayze, again, is a whole meal.
Yeah.
He's a hunk. And just the look she gives, and just this whole body shudder.
Yeah. So basically, it would be less sexual if her head turned into an old-timey factory siren and just went woo, woo, woo.
A steam whistle and fucking Fred Flintstone pulled the...
Yeah, she would be significantly less thirsty than what she actually does.
Mm-hmm.
And then she establishes that he's Mondo hot, and then she shows up again in the background. They're like, oh, she can sing, great. And then she's never really brought up again.
Exactly. There's a bunch of other bouncers who's, again, like the casting in this movie, incredible. They knew they were making an anime because everyone's face is just inexplicable. Like there's this one guy who has like these slit eyes, who has like a very mysterious look, and there's one like sort of moon-faced kid who's all like, "Golly, Dalton!" Every single one of these people could be like the secondary character, like Dalton's main buddy.
In a just world, they would all be vying for sidekick position.
Yeah, this is an OVA, so that means that this
was cut out. This happened in the manga. There was maybe a sub-tournament where they got to be who was
for
Dalton Jr. or something.
For sure. In the manga, they have all of them has a backstory. We learn about all of their tragic histories that led them to this point. But in the movie, we just get to see them. We get to see their design. Some of them get to display their powers, but not all of them. One of them says, "You got balls big enough to come in a dump truck,"
which, as a phrase, is that the implication that he nuts so much that there is enough to fill a dump truck, or that the balls are so large that they need to be hauled by a dump truck? This is a translation issue.
Yeah. Because if we're looking at the actual language that was said, he has balls big enough to come in a dump truck. Well, so does anyone who has the ability to come.
Yeah.
They could come in a dump truck.
Yeah.
He did not say you have balls big enough to fill a dump truck with cum.
That's what I took it to be inferred, but still unclear.
But as you say, translation errors abound. Like, if you've watched anime, you know that there are just wordplay jokes in Japanese that just do not translate to an English translation. There's no way to really make the joke come across, and you get that a lot in Roadhouse.
Yeah, I can only assume the dump truck thing was a kanji pun that we'll never understand, and that's fine.
Other issues, there is a running joke where characters will, at the end of the scene, after talking to Dalton, they'll be like, "Hey, by the way," and he'll stop and be like, "What?" And they'll just wait a beat and say, "I thought you'd be bigger."
He's not small.
He's normal fucking size.
In fact, he's taller than most of the characters. Like, there's a few, like, towering luds, just absolute lumpin' fools that are huge and 8 feet tall, but, like, he's not small.
Hey, we're not talking Tom Cruise here. This is not like a little manlet. He is big. He is buff. He's a hunk. His hair is adding an extra, 10 inches.
Yeah, which it will also inflate to ward off predators.
Yeah, but this happens multiple times. Each time the movie is expecting, us, the audience, to fucking lose it. And each time there's a longer and longer pause for what they imagine are the longer and longer laughter breaks. It doesn't come over.
Another problem with translation problems is that when there's some sexual subtext, some wordplay, it can be very confusing. And I think a shining example of this is when there's another drunk, lumpin', damp man approaches a hottie at a bar and says,
a big titty bimbo.
Yes,
to be clear.
She's a bimbo for sure. And he says, "Hey, baby, how about you and me get nipple to nipple?" And then she confusingly, she had a chance to maybe clarify this use of language, and she instead chooses to inject it with more ambiguity because she says, "No, I can do that without you."
What does it mean?
Which I don't know.
Does this?
I don't like it. It's trying to be horny, but I just get upset.
It's the phrase make the beast with two backs. That's a way to talk about doing it. But imagine trying to translate that into Japanese from English. It's not gonna turn out well. I think that's the same thing that's happening here with nipple to nipple, especially. When she says, "I can do that without you," is she saying, I can find a better person with whom to get nipple to nipple with? Or is she I'll put my nipples together?
It doesn't matter because it's a fucking mystery.
Another translation error that goes along with the sexual innuendo is at one point a character looks at another character's posterior and remarks, "That girl's got entirely too many brains to have an ass like that," which I can only imagine is a translation error. Because
this is an assless movie. The best ass in the movie is Patrick Swayze.
Yeah, there's a lot of unearned, unsexy fan service. Another reason this is anime. And so we see a lot of nude women. And none of them have an ass. It is all just a fucking, flat as a board from back to thigh with nothing in between.
This movie came out in 1989. The sacred text suggests that asses were invented in 1991.
Yeah. If we remember Sir Mix-a-Lot, he said, the beanpole dames in the magazine say flat butts are the thing. So we were clearly in the time where that was what the dames in the magazine were saying.
Yeah.
And this movie says it loud and clear.
So, reason the fourth, gratuitous fan service.
And like most fan service in anime, it's just not actually pleasant to look at.
Right. It's sort of a wink, wink, nod, nod, like, can you believe that you're seeing this right now? And no, I can't, because I hate it.
It's all of the breasts. I don't understand what the directors of this movie think the appeal of breasts are, because they're like, well, you want them to be hard. For one, very hard movement. No, don't do that. I want them to be completely still. I want the skin on these breasts to look like they're straining at all times and could honestly burst under pressure at any moment.
There is a lot of nudity in this. So the villain lives across the river in basically
Dalton's backyard.
Dalton's apartment, by the way. He lives in a palatial barn open-air apartment. It looks like Endgame Animal Crossing. It's like you get all the furniture you want. You have everything set up exactly how you want it. You got a good theme going. That's where he lives.
Yeah. And across the river is the villain.
And Dalton has to watch the villain throw, titty pool parties.
Yeah, where a bunch of big titty ladies jump into a big pool and yelp.
Yeah, and there's also fully clothed guys in trench coats that do shimmying around it.
Again, because I think this must be a decision that was made to highlight Swayze, because aside from him and one other character, every other male actor in this film looks
it's a
nightmare.
Goblin. They're all made of just wet goop.
It's just not good.
No one can wear fitting clothes either. That's the other thing. In the final showdown with the villain is he looks like a Miami crime boss that lost 300 pounds. Just the clothes are just hanging off him. And the villain is a moderately fit older guy.
Yeah.
And he's just wearing a friggin' burlap sack. Both at top and bottom. He's got two burlap sacks connected by a belt.
This is imagine you're watching a sex comedy and you're having sex, but someone came to the house and you have to pretend like everything's fine, but your clothes are in a different room, so you have to wear the sheet. You have to wear the sheet as clothes. That's what he looks like.
Yeah. He wore the sheet and then put a belt over it.
Yeah, and there is a lot of incidental nudity. You have your titty party. When we meet Dalton Sensei, he is at another bar where there was a wet t-shirt contest, but t-shirt has been crossed out and replaced with G-string.
And just a rapid escalation.
But I think the worst part is at one point, that bimbo who said nipple to nipple, turns out she's the villain's girlfriend. And they show up at the Double Deuce to, I guess, menace it. And she's like, I want to dance. And he's like, you can dance, baby. And she goes up and does a full striptease for some fucking reason to some terrible blues rock. And she is wearing a pair of underwear that just doesn't make sense. I don't understand why it's like that.
It's very tall. It's it looks like a tablecloth doily. It's just the longest pair of underwear They're basically long johns. They're sexy long johns.
Sexy is in quotes here.
Yeah, they're sexy long johns. Also, the striptease dance, we were watching and your wife is like, is this doing anything for you guys? And the answer is no, because she looks like she's having an episode.
She does not look confident about it.
She does not look confident about it. It's not really in tune or in rhythm with the music.
Yeah. It's also unclear why she's doing it, because it's not like the villain gets off at showing off his bimbo to everyone. When she flirts with other guys, him and his goons get really fucking mad.
Right. Again, there's probably a whole side story there that couldn't have been fleshed out.
Yeah, that was in the manga.
Yeah.
But with the OVA, you only get an hour and a half.
I know a lot of defenders of fan service will just be like, well, actually, there's usually a reason why the sexy stuff is happening. It's integral to the part. It's actually well integrated, and that there's a reason for it. And they try to do it in Roadhouse. For like one of the first instances of a knife being pulled in the movie is that a girl gets up on a table and she's like, I want to dance. And then one of the bouncers is like, hey, that's dangerous. You should not do that. And then this guy is like, if you make her stop dancing, I'll fucking kill you. He pulls out, again, like another katana. And a little bit back to the lead poisoning thing. This man was willing to go to jail because someone stopped this stranger from dancing.
That's incredible. And another instance of violence occurring is this guy who is like bald and looks to be like 60 years old is with a young woman, and he's like, hey, look at her. Have you ever seen such a pair of attitudes? Pointing at her titties and like, $20, you can kiss them. Which, like, kiss them? Like, what? Is that the preferred action to take with the whatever. And then some guy who, again, looks like you had an action figure that you, like, put over a flame for a while for a face. He's like, golly, I'd love to. And he starts groping her titties, and the guy's just like, come on, you gonna kiss him? Or ain't ya? And he's like, I can't, because I don't have $20. And that causes, a brawl where the sicko mode, again, like the rage virus, infects the entire bar.
Right. It causes property damage well in excess of the bar's revenue for like 4 years.
Yeah. And to be clear, while this is happening and like every single table in the bar is being absolutely demolished beyond repair, this is like the first day Dalton got there. And he's just standing there observing, not doing anything. He's just taking the lay of the land. And one of the other bartenders notices him and is like, hey, buy something or get out. And it's like, oh, like he's the one who's making you lose money. You need to turn over the corner of the bar he's lurking in. Fucking incredible. Anyway, we need to get into the next reason Roadhouse is anime, because there's more.
Reason the fifth.
Because how did our protagonist get this good? Well, he obviously had a wise sensei under whom he trained.
Yeah, so who was head of the turtle school in Roadhouse?
Head of the turtle school is none other than Wade Garrett, played by Sam Elliott. And you know how we mentioned there's a lot of fan service and it's not very sexy? We were kind of lying, because Sam Elliott in this movie
is a snack.
He is the most fuckable human who has ever been born.
He also is the first time in a movie I can honestly remember seeing dick cleavage.
Yeah.
Like both Dalton and he, because they're professional bouncers, which means you break 800,000 bones and you have just war scars all over you. He shows one of his scars that's like by his navel, and he pulls down his pants, and you see like the top of his bush.
Yeah.
And that's dick cleavage. Can you remember a movie where you just saw that?
No. I can't remember. Every single time I'm watching a movie and there's a possibility that someone could be hanging dong, I'm just like, hang dong. Because like, it's not like I want to see the dong, but I'm just like, I want to know that there's someone willing to do it.
Yeah.
Because like, it's just, actresses need to be nude constantly, and it's never a request that's ever made of actors. And it's unfair. So I want people to hang dong for equality. So also kind of be jiggling around. It'd be funny to see.
Yeah. And we see the top of Sam Elliott's bush.
To be clear, he's showing a scar that is above the belt line.
He did not need to show his bush. It's nowhere near his dick.
Yeah, he undoes his button, unzips his pants.
The
and
zipper is 4 feet long.
He puts his thumb in like the elastic of his underwear and yanks it down.
Yeah,
and
hubba.
Yeah, anyway, but we mentioned that Dalton is so fucking famous that as soon as people hear the name, everyone's head turns and their jaws drop and nothing more needs to be said.
With Sam Elliott, his character, they don't even need to see his name. This gray-haired guy walks in and people immediately just start like flipping tables out of pure enjoyment.
Like people are getting on their fucking knees, worshiping at a fucking Wade Garrett. And
Wade Garrett's job is the same as Dalton's. He's just a bouncer.
And to be clear, like, he shows up like halfway through the movie, but he has been introduced. This is the great thing about all good anime, is that you have to sort of see these plot developments coming and seed them. This is something that One Piece does especially well. In the beginning, when the owner of the Double Deuce is hiring Dalton, he's like, my bar's fucked up. I need the best to clean it up. And Dalton says, I'm not the best. Wade Garrett's the best. And then when he shows up, you're like, oh, damn. He's going to really kick ass. And like all anime, sometimes the payoffs are real bad. Because Wade Garrett doesn't really do anything.
He fights, I guess. He mostly tries to cuck him. He mostly tries to cuck Dalton. That's the main thing he does.
Joey was drinking water.
Yeah, he
really struggled there.
I don't know. The manga chapter for like 50 minutes in, I think, is cucked by my sensei.
Yes, yeah. So Dalton is striking up a relationship with a doctor in the town who patches him up. And she's the one who's like, oh, wow, you have a PhD in philosophy from NYU. And
Which was in his medical records for some reason.
Yeah, he carries his medical records around to give to doctors to speed things up, which is kind of a fun detail. But one of the things in his medical records is like, I'm actually a genius.
I see on this page you have a huge brain.
So he's going out with this doctor, and he wants Wade Garrett to meet her, and they're in some fucking diner where they are doing a slow dance down the sort of center aisle between the booths, which in real life would be the most uncomfortable thing in the universe. And Dalton is like, whenever he's telling you it's a lie, thinking that he's like saying old war stories about, their time bouncing. But what he's actually saying
is I want to get up in your guts.
Yeah.
He's just like, lady, I want a fug.
I sure would love to absolutely cuck the shit out of my protege. And he's just like, oh, golly, I'm glad they're getting along well.
Also, the Dr. Love interest is just like, oh, you.
It's incredible.
A good thing about the doctor is that when she's in doctor mode, she has glasses. And then when she's in like love interest mode, she's wearing a dress that looks like a picnic blanket.
Yes. And when she's in doctor mode, she has her hair put up in like a sensible braid. When she's like out on the town, she like puts a gallon of hairspray in it and teases her hair out such that the hair on the sides of her head goes completely horizontal for like 5 inches before making a hard right angle turn downward.
So the bolts in Frankenstein's neck.
Fuck.
That's like if you made them out of hair and you moved them up to her temples, that's what her deal is.
It's so bad. It's so bad. And she is, God love her, but she's got no butt. And you can't choose that. I'm not saying she's a bad person.
But she is referenced in that line where like someone with that much brain shouldn't have that kind of ass or whatever the line is.
Maybe what he's saying, and this could be, as a translation issue, someone with that much brains is such a good person that they deserve a rocking hinder. And the fact that she doesn't have one is a crime, which is why she doesn't deserve that.
That could be. But the other issue with that is that this is a world where no one has ever had a rocking hinder. So how would he even know?
That makes sense.
Reason 6 why this is indisputably anime. The fucking villain. The villain is just an anime bad guy.
Yeah. Anime bad guys, you got to have a villain every arc. There's always got to be someone who's against our heroes. Sometimes you don't really think of a good motivation for them, but you just have to have someone to beat up. And I think one of the more illustrative examples of what anime is there was a tweet where it was one of those dialogue tweets where there's an anime villain saying, "You idiot. You think having friends is good? No, having friends is stupid. Having friends sucks ass." And then the anime hero, powering up, says, "Did you just say having friends sucks ass?"
Yes, and the villain here absolutely thinks having friends sucks ass. He thinks that the only type of people that should be around you are lumpy goons that you can beat up.
And, he acts like he's friends with them, but he, beats them up and belittles them at any time. Although, at the same time, it appears that they all live with him in his house and sleep in a big bed together.
When I first saw them, I was like, oh, yeah, these are his sons, right? And you were like, no, they're not. These are his huge sons, but not really.
So this guy is named Brad Wesley. We are introduced to him when he is driving in a classic roadster, listening to Shaboom, singing along with it. Shaboom, shaboom, life could be a dream, sweetheart. And what is he doing as he's singing?
He's this is how you know he's bad, because a bad guy always does not obey the rules of the road. He's just swerving. First of all, to danger your life while listening to this shitty music is incredible. That shows that you're just an absolute
sicko.
You're a sicko. But he's just swerving left and right over the center line in what I understand to be the only road in Jasper, Missouri. And our hero Dalton is driving, and he has to swerve out of the way. Honestly, they both come insanely close to dying, and it's such a non-event for both of them.
Yeah, Dalton looks like, what the fuck was that? I had to swerve to save my life. And Brad Wesley sort of like giggles, like, I can't believe it. I'm doing great.
Right. And so he is a tycoon. So basically his background is they say he grew up on the mean streets of Chicago.
Which is incredible.
It's yeah. And also the character, rare for villains, notably a veteran. He served in Korea.
He says he came back to Jasper, Missouri, and there was nothing. And then he got them a photomat, and then he got them a 7-Eleven, and now he's getting them a J.C. Penney's.
Right, and
that's like his big like life's work.
Yeah, and he's like, I got rich off all these idiots. Basically, it's his whole deal. And he also has basically a protection racket. You know how like the mob will be like, you have to pay us 10% or something will happen to your business. He has that going. There's a auto parts store which he robs every day, I guess, because he doesn't pay the protection money. There is a car dealership which he fucking ruins because they disrespect him, and some other shit.
Yeah, again, in the manga they get into this more specifically, but we just get those two, and we sort of have to assume, we have to extrapolate that this is happening across the town, that he's extorting these businesses.
And this is where he has sort of a common problem for villains. His motivations don't really line up with like reality. His main goal, his presumably stated goal, is that he's rich.
He wants to be more rich.
And he's going to get richer. However, everything he does is very expensive and pointless. It causes rampant destruction and gives him no gain whatsoever. He blows up the auto parts store. He drives a monster truck through the car dealership that disrespected him.
And like absolutely demolishes all the cars. And to be clear, like, he is the villain in that he is trying to stop Dalton from doing his job. And Dalton's job, to be fucking clear, is just to make a bar more palatable for customers.
Right. The end goal in practice means that it got orange paint. Like the bar at towards the end of the movie, when it's like niceified because of his community college business school classes, they remove the chain link fence because people no longer want to throw bottles at the blind boy anymore.
Yeah, instead of the double deuce being crappy letters that are crudely painted above the door, they get a sign.
All of the bouncers that aren't Dalton, because he wears a karate shirt, all the bouncers wear uniforms, so they look like orange Best Buy employees.
Mm-hmm.
And then they also paint parts of the bar orange. Also, in addition, the seats have leather padding, because I guess the implication there is that they stop getting broken every night.
Yeah, so like Brad Wesley should be like, oh, dope, Dalton, I would love it if you made the profits of the bar more so that I could get a bigger 10%. But no, I think like the only thing that we ever get as a reason why he does this is that, again, the side character of John Doe from the band X, his nephew gets fired for stealing from the bar. And I guess everything else is just reprisal for that, which doesn't make sense.
Because he doesn't actually care about him that much.
Yeah, no, what he actually cares about is opposing the philosophy that having friends is good.
That you should ever have to depend on another person.
Yeah. So he hates Dalton because Dalton likes having friends and is friends with Wade Garrett, and he's like, having friends sucks ass. So he kills Wade Garrett. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
For Roadhouse.
You know how in The Dark Knight there's that part where like the Batman has to figure out which person's going to get killed, and it's either Harvey Dent or his love interest.
Yeah.
Well, Roadhouse did it first, bitch.
Yeah, and it's great because Wade Garrett stumbles into the bar half dead, and he's like, I almost got killed by 3 guys who came to kill me, but they left and said I was lucky. And so Dalton's like, shit, that means that he was lucky. It means that that my love interest was the one they were going to go kill. Oh no, I got to save her life.
It was decided by a coin flip, which he did not see.
Yeah. And so he rushes off, leaving half-dead Wade Garrett in the bar, and he goes to the hospital where his love interest is doing doctor shit. And he's like, we have to go. And she's like, no, I won't. And he's like, damn. And then he leaves, and he goes back to the bar, and is absolutely, like, he has absolutely no tension in him whatsoever. He's like, well, I was scared before, but everything's cool now. And then, like, oops, turns out Wade Garrett actually was the one who the coin flip said to kill. Someone came back to the bar and killed him while you were gone.
With a big knife and with a note that says, having friends sucks ass.
Yes, and so, you know, anime, it's clear. Can you deny it?
No.
So another reason that, I forget, are we on 7 now?
Reason the 7th.
Why this is anime.
Manga arcs that had to get cut.
Yeah,
They just left out.
You know, there's a lot of source material to work with the Roadhouse manga, but when they had to make the anime, you know, they didn't get a full series order. They only had to make an OVA, and so some stuff had to get cut. For example, there was an entire arc in the manga about how they, you know, were getting their liquor withheld from them by Brad Wesley because he also controls liquor distribution. And there was like a whole thing where Keith David, as a side character, was going to sort of like have this investigation into why it was happening. But that got cut. We just see Keith David, again, a pretty big name actor, just in the background. I would say he's an extra, except there are extras in this movie that do a lot more than him.
Yeah, he doesn't even throw anyone through a table.
Yeah. It's fucking Keith David, and he's just there, and you're just like, hey, Keith David. And by the time you even notice, he's gone.
So the problem is introduced, and then the liquor's just flowing again later.
Yeah. The only thing that happens is at one point, the goons come to, like, break all their liquor bottles when they get a shipment, which, again, they shouldn't even be getting a shipment. But the goons come to break their liquor bottles, and Wade Garrett and Dalton kick their ass.
Right.
Yeah. And then they got it.
There's another character that felt like it was teed up to be more developed, and that is the strange prospector that he rents his room from. He lives in an open-air, fully furnished barn that kicks ass for $100 a month, which, adjusted for inflation, $200 a month.
Yeah, it's extremely fucking cheap.
And he lives on the property of... He isn't actually a prospector.
Imagine what you think a prospector looks like. It looks exactly like this guy, but he's a farmer.
But is he? Because the only thing he does is pick up hay bales and move them to the other side of the property. And he has horses.
Yeah. So we assume, okay, in the manga, we assume there has to be an arc where he learns that horse milk is delicious. And he is supplying Jasper with fresh horse milk.
Or maybe like in the act of taming a wild horse, he understands a new way to kick someone.
Incredible. And Brad Wesley, you know, having friends sucks ass. We learned that we have to assume that in the manga he used to be friends with this guy, and then like he decided that, you know, in order to be a suburban mob boss, which, to be like, we have to be fucking clear, this is a suburb of Kansas City. So it's not even like the city is that big. This is a suburb. But in order to be a suburb mob boss, you have to understand that having friends sucks ass. So he made an enemy of this guy. So what he does, and again, they live next door, is he will frequently just buzz the barn with his helicopter to scare the horses. And he'll do this repeatedly.
Yeah, he loves it. His favorite thing to do is scare horses.
Yeah.
And then the other prank he does is he blows up his house.
God damn it.
He just fucking blows up his house, and then Dalton has to go in there and save him, and he is in a big red onesie. So
he's dressed like Santa Claus.
He looks like Santa. He is rescued. He does not die.
And like, instead of being like, fuck, my house blew up, he has like a quip about like, what they're asking him, like, are you all right? He's like, I'll be all right once and if you get off of me, sonny.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, he's homeless now. Not an issue, though.
And then he watches Dalton tear a guy's throat out. Normal stuff. And so, in addition to this old prospector, another character whose arc had to get cut is the owner of the bar. Now, if you were to look at the text of the words said in this movie, you would think that the owner of the bar was a normal guy who really wanted his bar to be respectable and profitable, and that's it.
A normal guy who wants those things, but for sure sucks at business.
Yeah, so you would think that there's nothing more to this guy. But it's clear the actor who's playing this role read the manga and was a big fan of the original arc for his character, because he is putting a lot of spin onto his acting.
Every line read of the owner, even though he, again, is not a bad guy, is said with such intense, horny malice. There's just extreme chaos pervert energy coming off of every line this guy says.
It's like this is an actor who seems incapable of smiling without that smile reading as a threat.
Yeah, everything he says looks and sounds like he's watching someone get cement shoed and thrown into a river.
He either wants to kill or fuck Dalton at all times. Like the way
I think he's like Hisoka. It's like one and the same. Like he's a killer clown and he wants to make sure that Dalton is at his maximum power level is when he kills him so he can get sexual satisfaction.
Of course. Yeah, I think that might be what the arc was, because nothing else makes sense.
There's like also a small part where the owner like kind of doesn't stand up for himself, like when the goons show up and like insists that the bartender that was fired be rehired. And he's like, like scared a little bit. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh, is this like a character element? Like, is he scared now? Is he going to be braver later? Not really.
No.
I mean, he's scared because there was a guy in his office with a big knife, but it wasn't like a plot point in his overall growth.
Yeah. It just speaks to that strength of anime where the characterization is so deep and so rich that you feel like any one of these characters could spin off into the central character of the next arc. And that's really something that is a strength of the ensemble cast of a good anime, and especially the ensemble cast of Roadhouse. You really get the feeling that if, Shonen Jump were to pick up Roadhouse for another, 200 chapters, that there's enough to work with here. Like, we've set up enough characters and enough, sort of character beats that we could have arcs for years.
I kind of expected the owner to take the place as the new big bad. You know how the thing always happens where like the bad guy's defeated and then you realize that wasn't even the real issue. Like, he was basically a mini boss to the real crisis.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
He could have been it, but in fact, he's just a normal business owner who wants to see his bar do well that can't help lick his chops like a maniac after every line.
Yeah. Fuck. It's incredible.
Reason the 8th that it's anime. The main character has a very powerful secret technique that he doesn't want to use.
Yes. So Dalton, we see him at one point doing that classic anime trope of, your interstitial connecting scene that's just quiet and introspective and atmospheric, and we just watch something slowly happen. It's not relevant to the plot, but it's just sort of meditative as he's doing Tai Chi and his ripped body is just rippling in the sun.
He's a unique kind of rip too that you don't see too much anymore. He's jacked for sure, there's no doubt, but you can still see his ribs.
Yeah.
You don't see that too much now. Now like Captain America stuff is like bulky, hulky, strong guy. This is a sinewy sort of
this
powerful
is peak performance.
Yeah.
And so you are clearly seeing that he is charging up his sicko mana for when he needs to use a special technique.
Right.
And he has a special technique that he's got in his pocket, and he's afraid to use it. He's used it once before, and it haunts him. Wade Garrett keeps telling him to put the trauma out of his mind. And again, this is another cut manga plot where apparently he's a very dangerous guy because his love interest is like, you can't fight Brad Wesley because once you save the town from him, who's going to save the town from you? Which he hasn't done anything like dangerous, so I don't know what she's getting at there.
But she was right, because his secret technique is to rip a guy's throat out.
Yeah!
But she doesn't know this.
So we have a big fight scene with the main goon.
Who's another buff boy who has a big bear claw. The actual bone, not like a donut.
Yeah, you got a bear claw necklace and he has a cross tattoo. And he famously says, I used to fuck guys like you in prison to Dalton during the fight, which, incredible. And yeah, and then he tears his throat out in front of, to be clear, Emmett and his love interest, who both see him do an absolute murder. And then he, shoves the dead body across the river back to Brad Wesley's house, who's watching from the balcony.
Who watches everything from the balcony. He watched Dalton fuck on his balcony, too. He's just like a creep.
And he's watching Dalton have friends and being like, this sucks. And he throws the dead body over and he's like, hey, Brad. He's about to do that sick anime move where you say a dope one-liner that completely demolishes the philosophy and worldview of your opponent. And he says,
fuck you. This is the best.
This is anime.
Yeah.
Folks, it's anime.
No, this is a bad dub. Yeah. This is, yeah.
He was like, you are no longer my nakama. And they're like, what the fuck's not? Just say fuck you.
He also has a mantra that I believe when he repeats it in his thoughts, it powers him up. And that mantra is, pain don't hurt. Which, not true. It's like the very definition of pain.
I can hardly think of something that would hurt more.
Right. And he says this to his doctor girlfriend, who is like, oh, actually, that's wrong. Yeah, I went to school for a very long time, and I'm sorry to break this to you, but that's incorrect.
Yeah, pain, in fact, golly, yeah, they sort of go hand in hand, friend.
Yeah, and he lives this mantra because when he gets lightly stabbed a bunch of times, and he shows up to the ER when he first meets her, and she's like, all right, I'm going to staple your wound closed. I'm going to do a local anesthetic. And he's like, no.
Pain don't hurt.
Pain don't hurt. And she's like, oh, fine.
Which, okay, even if that made sense, it doesn't. That doesn't mean you have to say no to anesthetics. It's not like if pain don't hurt. Okay, cool. It don't do anything good either.
I actually wonder what the actual medical procedure is. It's like, hey, patient said no to anesthetic. Do we just do it? I don't know what the process for that is.
I think you just do. I mean, there has to. I think isn't it Jehovah's Witnesses that's some sort of thing? They can't. I think they have blood transfusions that they say no to. Who gives a shit? I don't know.
Christian Scientists reject all medicine, but that's probably not what you meant.
But yeah. Part of his sort of special technique is this sort of pain don't hurt mantra, where he is so zen. He does his Tai Chi. He refuses to let things get the better of him, which makes his ultimate technique all the more shocking.
Which isn't even true because at the end, when he goes on a murder rampage, notably not zen.
Oh, yeah.
He kills a guy with a knife, then he throws that knife at a guy who's trying to shoot him from a balcony, and then he crushes a guy with a big stuffed bear, as in a polar bear. Not like a teddy bear, but like a polar bear, because the bad guy is as evil guys often are, a trophy hunter.
Mm-hmm.
And the bear famously crushes his balls, killing him instantly. And he's also alive later.
Yeah. And so, Joe, I think the final thing we have to talk about for the reason why this is anime is that the finale, you talked about it briefly just before, is the money shot. It's the big action scene where a bunch of side characters come together and we have the final confrontation with the villain. And the villain, let's be clear, he's 50 years old and does not look built at all.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be a fight. But they have a huge murder spree through the house where Dalton kills everyone, and then he and the villain have a big brawl.
So the brawl, I would summarize thusly. They are in his hall of safari trophies with all his animals that he's shot.
Yeah.
And they go toe-to-toe while the old guy hits him with a spear. Not the stabby part.
Yeah. He's holding the stabby part and hitting him with the handle.
Right. Not a great instinct for a hunter, for a supposed great game hunter.
He does throw a spear, and the form is incredible.
Right, yeah. He throws one spear. There are many behind him, and he doesn't throw anymore.
Yeah.
So he beats him up. They again, it's close. It shouldn't be that close. he eventually throws him onto the couch, and he raises his hand up to do his signature throat tear. The technique doesn't have a name.
He should be, okay, in the manga, he says the name of the attack every time he does it, but they took it out of the OVA, which I think was a bad move. But, no one's perfect.
So he's about to rip this guy's throat out, and then he's like, no. He has a change of heart. I can't murder anymore, which is kind of weird because he just killed a bunch of people to get here. That's fine, though.
Yeah. And then like, he also has stayed his hand because his love interest, the doctor, shows up, and he wants to prove to her that he's not as dangerous as Brad Wesley is.
So what happens then, Tom?
Well, Brad Wesley is like, well, you're a dumbass, and he takes a gun out to kill Dalton. And that's when the fucking Jasper, Missouri Small Business Association comes up. All of them toting a fucking double-barreled shotgun, and each of them turns the villain Brad Wesley into hamburger.
They just goopify his stomach. They all take turns just blowing this guy's insides out and all over the wall.
And then, like, the guy who owns the auto parts store, like, really quickly gathers all of their weapons up. And,
really quickly and calmly.
Gathers all their weapons up, disposes of them. The sheriff shows up, sees Brad Wesley and all of his goons turned to, like, ground meat on the ground, and is like, what happened?
And then all of the small business owners take turns saying, well, I didn't see anything. And
Didn't do nothing.
And then the cops are like, huh, gross. And then they all high five, I guess.
I guess he just did that. He just...
yeah, these things happen. Sometimes people hamburgerify themselves.
Yep. And then the guy who got his balls crushed by the bear, they're like, did you see anything happen? And he is really getting the implication that if he confesses that they killed Brad Wesley, he will get killed too. And he's just like, all I saw was a polar bear. And all of these people who just committed murder for the first time in their lives, seeing the light go out of another person's eyes, start giggling. And that's the end of the movie.
The last words in the film are a polar bear fell on me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is anime.
Yeah.
Folks, can you honestly tell me after listening to this episode of Anime Sickos that you can look me in the internet face and tell me that Roadhouse is an anime?
It is. It's obviously, just without any question, anime.
And just such anime. I love Roadhouse. Joe, what is it about Roadhouse that's so excellent to watch?
I think it's the unnerving threat of violence that is always under the surface at any given second. Because if any scene takes place in a bar, which is basically every scene,
Yeah.
there's a solid chance that a knife will come out and stab someone.
Yeah. Like all anime, it takes place in this sort of like heightened, strange fantasy world where the rules and assumptions that hold true in our daily lives have been replaced by strange moon rules.
Yeah, and the other thing is, you kind of get the idea that the only fun thing you can do is to go to the big noisy bar.
Yes.
When the villain crushes all of the dealership's cars because of disrespect or for whatever reasons, I don't remember.
Because he refused to pay. He's like, I'm standing up to you. I won't pay my protection money.
Oh, is that what it was? I don't remember. Okay, cool. So when that happens, everyone in the fucking town is there watching it happen because the bar isn't open yet. So they're just waiting for something to do.
Yeah.
They follow the big monster truck around because you know it's going to crush something.
Yeah. It's Chekhov's truck. The goon, the mob goon who owns the town doesn't have his goons drive around. And to be clear, like his lawyer is the main guy who drives the truck. You don't have your guys drive a monster truck around if you're not going to drive it over something.
Yeah, it's a definitive monster truck. Like it towers 12 feet over any other car.
It's the Gravedigger. It is a monster truck.
You have to climb a like high school gym rope to get to the driver's seat. It's that tall.
Man, Roadhouse, fucking just like, there's nothing like it. There wasn't, and it's not like one of those things where it's like movies these days They didn't make movies like that then either.
Yeah. They don't make them like they used to is not true. This is a lightning in a bottle situation.
Yeah. And I mean, the reason that the lightning got in the bottle is because they decided to make it anime.
Yeah.
And I think that's all we got to say, unless you have any final thoughts you want to leave us with.
No, it is anime. It's definitively anime. If you don't agree with us, you're canceled. You're just canceled.
Yeah, you're canceled and wrong. You're not an ally.
No. So please take this new knowledge and tell someone at a party, and then they can leave you alone because they don't want to hear it.
Yeah, and they'll be like, no, there's 7 reasons why, and then you're gonna get canceled again.
Yeah.
Getting canceled is a tough thing. There's a lot of ways to do it. You got to really walk the line.
Yeah.
We'll never get canceled though. Anyway, thank you for listening to Anime Sickos. Bye.
I'm Joe.
I'm Tom. Bye. Thank you for listening to Anime Sickos. I've been Tom, a sicko. You can follow me on Twitter at TomHarrison19. Joe is also a sicko. You can follow him on Twitter at ShariaUncle. You can follow Anime Sickos on Twitter at Anime Sickos, or email us at animesickos@gmail.com. Please leave us a review or something. I don't know. Tell a friend. Anyway, until next time, bye.